Hello, hello. My name is Jacklyn Lane. I am all my life I've loved learning, um, asking why, what makes people tick. And so we at Varicent are really excited about having meaningful conversations on topics that sales professionals care a lot about, and moreover, that they want to know more about. In this series, I'm excited to talk to industry leaders to share their experiences and insights with all of you. So today I'm speaking with Amii Stephenson, VP of Sales at Maple Health. Amii has had a broad sales career from field sales to partner sales, sales ops to leadership, and her journey has certainly been varied. I'm looking forward to learning some more about you, madam. I would like to pop it over to Amii to introduce herself.
Well, that was a great intro. There's not much more to say. So thank you very much. Really pleased to be here. I think that there's so much that we can learn from each other, and particularly as we are in what we will call unprecedented times, there's lots to learn and relearn. So very excited to be here and learn from you too.
Awesome. So, the format of today, we're going to ask some questions that people are generally curious about. And also, I personally am curious about these responses from you specifically. Um, but for those who are attending, if you have questions, please pop them in the chat as they come to mind. We will answer them when we can get to them. So, kicking off, tell me a little bit about Amii, how you started, how things have changed since you were a seller.
Good question. Well, I'll start with a little bit about how I started. So I've probably been in the sales ecosystem now 15 plus years. As you said, started in field sales and did a little bit of all the things in between leadership roles today. When I first started, and maybe it was personally my experience, but it seemed as though there was a very clear recipe to what success looked like. There was a path forward, very clear in terms of what it took to be successful in the role. The in person activity was part of what you needed to win. Buyers were more accessible, whether you were knocking on their doors or looking it up in the phone book, finding the number to get them. They were accessible. They wanted to meet you in person. That was how you were able to get the deal done. I think the activity was high. You knew that if there was a certain number of activities you did, you were bound to move clients through the funnel and inevitably get to the place that you wanted to go. I did find years ago there was more autonomy from the buyers. Buyers were able to make decisions with more authority.
Mm.
And I think that's changed since then. But really, I mean, when I reflect back on where I started, the company brand, the company recognition was so critical. And where you played in your territory, your geography, your territory, it was a really important part of segmentation. Um, so to say all that about where we started, where I think we've come to, or my experience of where we have ended up, is the job of sales is a lot harder. It takes more there's more strategic thought that goes into being a seller as well as a sales leader or sales operations professional. Um, I find that the multi-stakeholder buying process is more commonplace. There are many influencers in a buying decision, and truly, I mean, as the economy and times have evolved, procurement is often a big part of that buying process. Seeking outside consultation, outside advisory in making any sort of big buying decision, that would be a big change. I also feel like data-driven decisions are more commonplace. So certainly for buyers, they're looking for that clear ROI. They are looking for the data to support um, any of your value propositions or your claims. And not to say that that wasn't always there. I just feel like the depth and the insight is more of a requirement upfront. And as a seller, it's also much more data driven to determine where you need to focus, where you have the highest probability to win, where you could have the greatest level of success, there is more of a requirement on the sellers to be technologically inclined. What I do also find is our buyers, uh, they're seeking more disruptive alternatives. They're in this place now where they need to find ways to optimize and
Mhm.
ways to reinvent, perhaps, and looking for ways to disrupt those processes. So that's been quite interesting. And maybe just to reflect on my very first comment, it used to be very in person, and now many, I mean, I can tell you and I, we're both working from home. uh,
Mhm.
Lots of remote work, lots of hybrid workforces. The idea that I could knock on somebody's door and see them,
Mhm.
very unlikely, very inappropriate, probably. So I do think that there is more of a uh, dependency on how we use our technology, how we collaborate, and finding new approaches to meeting is really necessary. So I very much empathize with my team, with sellers, because I too feel like I am needing to evolve and needing to find new ways of doing things, and uh, new technologies to support the way that I am doing things. And it is a more challenging job, I would say, from when I started out.
Yeah, it's interesting when you reflect back to, when we first started selling. To give a little history, I have a long history of sales and have moved through the jigs and reels of corporate business, and now reside in product marketing. And, it really, back in the day, it was really about whoever worked the hardest often reaped the rewards, because it took hard work to go door to door and call and phone call. Like, I remember when, there was this big event that happened in Canada, and I was cold calling someone, and they were making fun of my formerly married name and told me they'd been waiting for me to call my whole life. Um, and they're like, "Do you know what's happening in Canada right now?" Which was interesting. But however fast people worked and hard people worked, that often dictated how successful they were. And so it sounds like, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of the research I've done too, where buying groups have gotten bigger. I almost feel like people are more risk averse. Like, they're not so willing to say, like, I like you, I think I like your company, I'm going to give it a whirl. They need 1,000 proof points because the buying group is 7 to 10 people.
Agreed.
Um, and so I really liked your comment too on the kind of this disruptive technology. Our chief product officer, Jason Lowe, often tells the story. There's, a chief financial officer will often spend $1 to make $1. So they'll spend money so that it improves revenue, but they won't necessarily spend $1 to save $1. So, like, cost
Mm,
optimization isn't enough anymore. We have
so
to, like, find this technology that makes such a difference that people want to stand behind it. So, of course, the market is changing. We're going through a kooky nutty time right now, post COVID, like, you know um, transportation disruptions, supply chain disruptions, and there's been tons of change. As a senior leader, um, how are you how have you had to change as a result of this evolution in selling, and that market conditions have become so volatile?
hmm Really good question. I said it earlier. I think I really empathize with sellers, but also sales leaders, of needing to consistently develop and not rest on the things that you knew were a strong foundation. Work ethic, great. I mean, that's a requirement, but the way in which you approach your business, for me, it has had to evolve, particularly in the last 3 years. But I just get the sense that that is how buying behavior is changing. For me, I think a big one is the way in which I prioritize our tech stack. It is not a nice to have. It's not the
Mm.
sexy thing anymore. It's a requirement, and I am constantly looking for ways to optimize our spend. Uh, find the best technology out there, the technology that I can continuously evaluate what we need and what will get my leaders, my team, whether sales or client success, to the most effective place. And in doing that, the things that I'm thinking about when I'm looking at those technologies and trying to do sometimes more with less is automating any processes that we possibly
Mhm.
can to be more effective with the time and the talent that we have in field. Truthfully, removing distractions, and this is not a poke at salespeople, but we do get a little distracted. Keeping very, very focused on what is going to yield the best results. So removing distractions from their day to day, enhancing focus on what we know will help us win, where we think we can win. As I said, automating processes, and very much, if possible, and this is a nut I continue to try to crack, but surfacing relevant information, whether that be trigger events or data, to deliver insights and deliver insights back to our prospective clients and our existing clients, so that we're adding value, so that we know how we can move that sales cycle forward, that we can capture some attention. It really just facilitates that behavior that we need. So I think technology more than ever, to stay current, to stay innovative in the way that I think about it, that has very much evolved for me. And I really do think that volatility that we're seeing in the market is unprecedented and inherently so unpredictable. So being okay with not knowing, trying and evolving quickly and failing fast, and
Mhm.
uh, trying new ways of getting those results, I think is really important. And businesses will just naturally look for ways to do things better, optimizing talent, optimizing technology, and really reimagining the way it's been done. So for me as a leader, trying to stay adaptable, trying to stay comfortable with that ambiguity, that we are experiencing in the market right now, it can be really fun. It spurs innovation. It makes you familiar with technologies and ways of doing things, and you've never seen them done like that before. It creates space for disruptors in our industry to revolutionize the way we have done things in the past. I mean, you could go on and on about AI and all of the changes that we're going to see, but there's just so many new ways of doing it. So I try my best not to say this is the way it's always been done, and therefore let's do it that way. Trying
Right.
to trying to be innovative and leave space for new.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that you just said in terms of, how do you react to the changes, and kind of this uncertainty. What it sounded like was try to stay as relevant as possible, try to stay agile and adaptable, and
Mhm.
instead of looking at it as a risk and full of fear, it truly is an opportunity, for new innovations and disruption, which brings me to my next question around the fact that Maple Health it feels like it was specifically designed for the world to be shut down. So, most recently, about 75% of respondents to this McKinsey and Company survey say that they expect that profit is going to increase over the next 6 months. Now,
Mhm.
not sure if profitability has been an issue for Maple, but considering current uncertain times, is profitability as much a target as revenue, or what's your priority, and what
Mhm.
strategies are you going to employ to kind of move the needle upwards?
Good question. I would say my personal area of focus is much more on revenue, but um, you know, Maple has benefited, I would say, from the pandemic, and I would hate to imply that was the reason, but it did propel our business forward. We had taken this stance of being very much a disruptor in the space back in 2015, rethinking how healthcare should look, and thinking about a frictionless experience. And then you move into a place where everything is remote, and that really does position Maple as a way to change that conversation and really disrupt that traditional approach to health benefits and to healthcare for consumers and also for organizations. So I for me, when I think about revenue, and that would certainly be my area of focus in the next 6 months, we see clients rethinking their spend. We see organizations looking for ways to think about those allocated funds and those allocated budgets, and thinking about new ways to reach um, the same outcomes or better outcomes for their staff, for their population, for their teams. And so we do really anticipate over the next 6 months really driving up that revenue. But some of the strategies, and we've been more creative with those strategies, have been very channels driven. You talked about off the top, Jackie, about multi stakeholders, and how we are thinking about those larger buying groups. Knowing that this is the case, knowing that this is the trend, we have done as much as we can to really leverage partner channels to help influence all levels of the buying process. And we utilize technology to do that. That has been a very defined sales strategy and targeted focus for us to make sure that we are leveraging as many channels as we can to capitalize on the opportunities that exist in the market. So I think to answer your question, when I think about that profit improvement or revenue improvement, really looking for ways to continue to challenge the way our clients and the way organizations have thought about healthcare or health of their teams or health benefits in the past, and teach them about or educate them about ways that you can improve outcomes, increase business results with that existing spend. So that creates that revenue cycle for Maple, but it allows for our clients to really optimize their budgets and drive efficiencies for them, which we find all of our clients are mostly focused on profitability.
So it sounds like some of the changes you've had to make are as much a result of your clients' need for change to kind of reprove their spend, to reallocate budget, to make sure they're kind of optimizing their spend. Um, from a technology perspective, do you feel like that's put a little more pressure? What kind of pressure has that put on you to reconsider how you manage, sales pipeline, using analytics to determine the best market or the best partner, or, how to reward partners, that kind of thing? Is What kind of considerations have you had related to dialing in a little more in terms of how your sellers approach their territories or groups of clients?
Good question. I think, from a technology perspective, this is a work in progress for us. And when I think about my peers in this space, and other leaders of sales organizations or client success organizations, really looking for ways that we can be less reactive, um, more informed, more proactive,
Mhm.
coming with those insights and not just reacting to the data that we see showing up in our revenue curve, but getting ahead of it, and looking very early in our sales funnel about how we can really influence, of course, win rates and sales velocity, and generally just speeding up that sales cycle. But very early in the curve, who are we going after? Who are we targeting? And I talked about being very channels driven, having that visibility so that we are really thinking about where all of the factors are lining up that we are best suited to win. And at the risk of being too much about Maple and our sales organization, I really think that you can learn so much from your existing clients, your existing partners. And when you get that perfect formula of they're checking multiple boxes, how can we track that, or have a data driven approach to know they meet these criteria, and therefore we're going to be more successful here? We have at least at Maple, we've really eliminated a lot of the need for geographical territories and that level of segmentation.
Mhm,
The remote world has allowed for
mhm,
much of that. Our segmentation is much more focused upon where we know what the what benefit we know we can bring to that client and where we know we can win. So we are very focused from an enterprise perspective, very focused on where our channel partnerships line up, and we can look to those clients that we know we are best equipped or best positioned to be successful. And so when I look at technologies, I'm really looking for systems and supports that will surface that without us needing to constantly make those net new inquiries, really looking for ways in which that information can be fed and direct the work and the focus of salespeople. And as I said, I think it's a
mhm,
work in progress. We're getting to a place where it's more evident, but um, there's so much more I know we could be doing to make use of the great talent that we do have.
mhm. I actually, as you talk about your talent, I think it doesn't sound like, considering there has been some really great traction with Maple over the last couple of years specifically, but maybe even drawing from your personal experience as a seller and kind of
Mhm.
meandering throughout. Um, I know that technology has sometimes had an impact on company morale. So either the lack of technology. So I've been at sales organizations where, you know, not that long ago I was tracking my activities in an Excel spreadsheet rather than in a CRM.
Yeah,
And I've also had places where there was micromanagement down to, loading certain documents into certain stages so that you could move to the next stage in your pipeline. So I think there's a wide gamut of application of sales technology.
very much.
Um, how do you think that kind of overdoing it on the technology side, so um, can have an impact on morale?
Mm.
Um, we'll start there, and then the second question is really, what have you seen in a sales organization that really really works to boost morale, considering a lot of companies are facing um, ups and downs, and mass layoffs in some organizations, and uncertainty in others. So to start out with, I'm just going to compound on a bunch of questions.
Break it down for me.
Whew. Okay, let's go back to the top. Is there a point at which you think technology can lean too heavy on the sales rep to impact morale in a negative
Yes.
way?
I mean, yes, this is a very broad spectrum of how those applications um, can look. In my own experience, I think I've lived through all of the examples that you've given of, where the inspection becomes paralyzing and you're
Mhm,
doing more of the administration than you are of the selling. Um, I'm a big believer that if you can demonstrate how this improves your job and improves your
mhm,
role and helps you win, you will often find salespeople are motivated by winning, by the compensation, by everything that comes along with that. If you can show that this makes it easier for you, I mean, there's no better sales pitch than to use the technology. And I think because I am currently operating in a earlier stage organization where we are building that technology stack, those proof points become much easier to sell through to the business. It's a smaller team. We're
mhm,
able to
mhm,
demonstrate how that technology has expedited that process, how it has enabled somebody to
mhm,
win, the fruits of that labor and what that looks like, and celebrating those things. And that part, I think, continues to be true. From a morale perspective, people want to be part of a winning team, and if you can demonstrate how that technology enables you to win,
mhm,
then then that's very clear. I just often, even with a sales operations background, I often feel like that step is missed, that what's in it
mhm,
for me, or how that really connects back to my day to day. It becomes more about you need to do this because it's your job versus this will facilitate your ability to do your job. You will be able to do more. You will be able to win more. And from a just general morale perspective, I feel like we are spending more time on ensuring that our salespeople have the same motivations, and that they are their motivations, their values reflect ours. Because certainly in an early stage organization, we are all big believers in our mission and what we're trying to do. So making sure that that alignment is very clear, so that when it takes time to see the benefit of a technology, when it takes time to have that clear winning process, then it was
Mhm.
worth it, that everybody's in it together. So we spend a lot of time thinking about that, what's in it for me from a seller's perspective.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And I love the part where you like it's not just about rolling out a tech and being really hard nosed about the tech. It's as much about um, making it a cultural piece. So, being creating this culture of winning, this positive culture of coaching so that we can facilitate winning more across the business. So I loved that. It turns out we're too short on time for me to ask you quick questions, which I'm really sad about because I was
Oh, too
very
bad.
excited about quick questions. I mean, I feel like we should do a couple before we wrap up, but you need to fast fire these at me, okay?
All right, I'll do my best.
Okay, tell me the last book you read.
Atomic Habits was
Um,
very good, very worth the read.
I desperately want to ask you questions about that, but this is quick questions, not other questions
Sorry,
on top
I
of the
won't
first question.
elaborate in the future.
Who is your number one LinkedIn follow?
Recently, Rachel Proven, who has been focused on client success, and she's excellent if you are invested in that area of the business.
Very cool. What is the very coolest thing you have done? Coolest activity?
Um, I went sledding down a volcano.
All these follow-up questions are like accumulating in my little index. I'm like, not now. It's not time for that. So what is the best advice you can give to someone new in business, someone new in sales?
How powerful your network is. I think you never really know who is behind the door you want to open. And I don't think I recognized how my
Mm.
network would serve me so early in my career. I mean, look at you, Jackie, part of my
You're
early network. Yeah. So I really do think that is probably should be a key priority for anybody early in their sales career. It allows you to get to the place that you want to go.
amazing. I love it. Final quick question, followed by another question, which is: when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Not a sales leader. Wasn't on my radar at 3 and 4 years old. I think very early it was a veterinarian. Then I moved to social work, which I mean, I guess a little bit of social work and sales. There's a little bit of a
There is.
therapy piece, but no, I didn't know that I would end up in sales, and now I can't really imagine doing anything else.
That's amazing. I always wanted to be a doctor, and I think that's one of those pieces that people constantly hear who are in sales and who have been forever. No 5-year-old is like, I want to be a sales rep when I grow up. So I think this is like a question that I just love asking sellers. So as we wrap, I have one final question, and my question to you is: what do you wish you knew more about?
Hmm. I mean, where I am spending my focus and my professional development is the impacts AI can have on my world. I think about that in many different ways, in the ways of sales forecasting and sales targeting, but also technical writing and um, just general improvements and upskilling for our team and coaching. It's just something I can't get enough information on, and I'm excited to see where all of this goes.
Yeah, we've got this really amazing chief chief analyst, chief researcher, and he does an incredible amount of research on AI and the power of AI from a
Mhm.
macroeconomic standpoint. So I'll be sure to share some of that information with you. Um, I want to say a big, giant thank you to Amii for participating in our first What I Wish I Knew LinkedIn Live session.
My pleasure.
I would say that the three key things that I took away from our conversation was right from the beginning. You know, when we talked about the evolution of what's changed and how that's had to change your behavior and the behavior of your sellers, is the fact that buying groups are that much larger. They're more risk averse, and they also need more proof points so that they feel confident in selling it internally. The second thing that I heard that kind of placed a little seed in my brain was the fact that sellers, sales leaders, not sellers, sales leaders, and business leaders are looking for technology that is disruptive within their own business. So creates this space, this opportunity for optimization. And then the third was the one that you just touched on in terms of, you know, not just implementing a sales technology, but that implementing it and rolling it out from a sales enablement standpoint is so important to get the proper adoption and the proper mindset around rolling out that new technology.
Mhm.
Um, I want to again say big, big, big thank you.
Thank you.
Um, Thank you. And then finally, for those who have attended live, please let us know what a topic is that you'd like to know more about. What is the name of a guest you'd love to talk to? We can't have Amii on next time. It'll have to be a couple of times later. But if there's someone you would super duper love to hear us talk to, please let us know, either just to Varicent or directly in the chat. And I look forward to seeing you in our next What I Wish I Knew session. Thank you.
Thanks, Jackie.